What if the printing press never existed? Picture a Europe lit only by candles. Monks stooped over parchment, letter by letter, copying a single page for a week. A world where ideas do not leap, they crawl. No flood of pamphlets, no cheap books, just whispers in taverns, sermons from pulpits, decrees sealed with wax, and the long, slow journey of the human voice. Here's what really happened. In the mid-1400s, a goldsmith in Mainz named Johannes Gutenberg fused metalwork, oil-based ink, and a sturdy wooden press into a single machine, movable type, the first industrial information engine. Within decades, presses roared across Europe. Books that had once cost a year's wages could suddenly be owned by a baker, a student, a sailor. Luther's words exploded across borders. Maps spread with every voyage. Newspapers stitched towns into nations. Science found a printing partner, journals to test and argue and refine. The press didn't just make books, it made a public. But what if it never arrives? Let's draw the alternate line. Gutenberg doesn't break through, or he does briefly, and gets crushed by debt, guild pressure, or a church afraid of chaos. A war in the Rhineland shatters his workshop. Oil-based ink proves unreliable. The few early printed sheets are denounced as profane imitations of sacred script, and east of Europe, where block printing and even early metal type once flickered, the craft never scales, smothered by court monopolies, cost, or simple cultural inertia. The world remains a manuscript world. The year is 1517. Martin Luther hammers his 95 Theses to a church door. In our timeline, that document went viral before viral existed. In this one, it is a local quarrel in a university town, duplicated by hand a few dozen times, debated in hushed Latin, and contained by bishops who have time, so much time, to respond. No avalanche of pamphlets, no instant hymns in German, no mass reading of the Bible at home. Reform becomes reform within the church, a council here, a new bishop there. Indulgences trimmed, but the structure holds. Western Christendom fractures less, it bends. Without print, censorship isn't a cat-and-mouse game, it's gravity. To spread an idea across Europe, you need couriers, copyists, patrons, permission. Authorities control the bottlenecks. The scribe guilds, the monasteries, the chancelleries, these are your servers, your platforms. If they don't copy you, you don't exist. Look at the map. Spain and Portugal command the seas, their royal archives stuffed with hand-drawn charts, guarded like treasure. Exploration still happens. Winds and gold don't wait. But knowledge moves vertically, not horizontally. Cartographers work for kings. Mariners pass secrets to sons, not to newspapers. The open ocean becomes a velvet curtain, parted only by decree. There's no Dutch printing boom to rally a revolt with broadsheets and Calvinist sermons. The Low Countries may simmer, but without a storm of tracts and maps. The Habsburgs have an easier time clamping down. The Dutch Golden Age dims, replaced by a long, productive loyalty to the crown. England. Without a bustling print culture, London's coffee houses hum with rumors, but lack the cheap broadsides that turn chatter into movements. Public opinion forms in rooms, not cities. The merchant class still grows, but slower, stitched together by letters, not newspapers. Pamphlets don't whip up storms because pamphlets don't exist. Across the oceans, conquest still bites, disease still strikes, but the story changes. In New Spain and Peru, friars teach by voice and catechism, not by prayer books scattered like seeds. Fewer printed grammars of indigenous languages means more fragile transmission. Bureaucracy balloons not on paper forms, multiplied by presses, but on fleets of scribes. Rooms of men paid to copy receipts and tally accounts by hand. Colonial empires grow more centralized, less transparent, more dependent on the steady hum of clerks who know how to make ink obey. Science is where the deepest delay emerges. Imagine Galileo without the ability to spread his arguments quickly, or Boyle without journals. Experiments happen, of course they do, but each is a candle in a separate room. Replication is rare because the recipe moves slower than curiosity. Secrets become profits. Workshops keep methods as guild property. A clever millwright guards a new gear like a family heirloom. Knowledge travels by apprenticeship, marriage, or bribery, not by printed proceedings. The Royal Society still forms, perhaps under a king's charter, but it's a salon, restricted and courtly. Ideas wear velvet slippers, not boots. Does the Industrial Revolution still happen? Yes. Coal burns with or without pamphlets. But it arrives like winter fog rather than lightning. No sudden spread of steam engine blueprints. No tidal wave of cheap technical manuals. Innovations cluster tightly around 3 or 4 regions, where patrons fund tinkerers and ministries guard the results. Britain might still lead, its coal, its canals, its ships. But without cheap technical publications, the leap is narrower and later. The first steam engines are rare, state-owned, and temperamental. Textile mechanization grows in guarded valleys. Patents exist, but proving prior art? Hard, when there isn't a common printed record. Lawsuits and secrets snarl the lanes of progress. And politics? The Enlightenment was a paper forest, leaves falling in Paris, Edinburgh, Königsberg, books, pamphlets, newspapers feeding salons and streets. Without that forest, the canopy thins. Voltaire is still sharp, but his words don't become furniture in every household. Rousseau inspires a circle, not a generation. Universities preserve debate, but the people, most of them, remain on the outside, listening to someone read from a handwritten copy once a month, if ever. The public sphere is narrow and aristocratic. Now, the French Revolution. In our world, pamphlets were the oxygen. Newspapers fanned the flame. Here, the monarchy's fiscal crisis still hits. Bread is still scarce. Anger rises. But the network of contagious ideas is smaller. Without millions of identical pages, you don't get a nation roaring in the same words. You get riots, reforms, and reaction, repeating like seasons. The crown concedes a charter. A cautious constitution, carefully copied and read aloud in parish halls, is issued. Nobles grumble, a few heads roll, but the machine never accelerates to terror. Europe exhales. Absolutism lingers, patched and polished. Abolition? Without runaway slave narratives in print, without Quaker pamphlets, without a British press pounding moral pressure, the campaign slows by decades. The slave trade eventually falters under changing economics and naval patrols, but emancipation spreads unevenly, later more fragmented. Freed people have fewer printed newspapers to knit communities across distances. Oral histories carry the weight. Songs become libraries. Look at the empires of the 1800s. The Habsburgs, the Romanovs, the Ottomans, they mount reforms from above. Without nationalist newspapers standardizing language, without cheap school books teaching one flag, one tongue, identity grows more local. Shared mass literacy never blossoms into a storm of we the people at the same scale. The revolutions of 1848 become protests of 1838, 1858, 1868, flares that die without oxygen. Vienna survives as an imperial capital of a multilingual realm that never quite explodes. St. Petersburg tightens control and modernizes railways on its own slow plan. Istanbul centralizes with scribal efficiency. Nationalism exists, but as a murmur, not a march. And then something strange. The first true mass medium is not print, it's sound. Radio arrives not in 1890s workshops spread through printed journals, but in a handful of royal laboratories around 1920 or even later. Its emergence delayed with electricity's theory, but when it comes with the weight of states. Imagine a world where the first time millions hear the same message simultaneously. It's not because they read the same newspaper. It's because they listen to the same voice, authorized, resonant, and unanswerable in the moment. The town crier, scaled to continents. Politics shifts. Instead of pamphlets birthing parties, microphones birth movements. Charismatic rulers become broadcasters-in-chief. The first universal publics are assembled by sound, not by text. There is less debate page by page, more command day by day. The idea of the fourth estate, press as counterpower, never matures. An overseer class of censors, signal managers, and court announcers fills the void where cheap print once stood. When dissent happens, it happens in private, coded, or sung. Secret societies keep minutes that no one sees. Does a great war still strike? The ingredients are there: pride, fear, alliances, steel. But it comes later, and it looks different. Railways extend slowly across empires. Mobilization is less efficient because orders move through bureaucrats, not mass-printed forms carried by every officer. The war that does erupt is broadcast, literally, with radio reports painting glory and tragedy in equal measures. Propaganda is synchronized from capitals, not contested in a raucous press. The home front hears one story, not 10. Afterward, there is grief, but fewer printed exposés, fewer commissions poured over by millions. No daily papers to autopsy the disaster. Memory becomes more sculpted, less messy, easier to steer. Education changes too. Literacy exists, but it is thinner, more elite, taught for account books and scripture. Without cheap textbooks, schooling for the masses remains patchy. Teachers read from master copies. Local pronunciations stay local because there's no school reader to iron them out. Latin lingers longer as the language of law and learning in Europe. Classical Chinese remains the scholar's writing across East Asia. Arabic script still binds a vast region of transmission. Vernacular literature blossoms in islands, a poet here, a playwright there, but it does not tie provinces into nations with uniform spelling. The great 19th century novels still appear, but their copies are few and expensive. They become performances, read aloud in theaters, serialized by voice on later radio. Libraries are vaults, not supermarkets. Meanwhile, capitalism breathes differently. Stock exchanges function by word and ledger. Without newspapers to publish prices, coffee houses settle for chalkboards and rumor. Market manipulation is easier, transparency is scarcer. Joint stock ventures rely on courtiers and trust, not public prospectuses. Iberian empires retain monopolies longer. The Dutch and English still innovate, but a wider investor class forms later, and with it, the middle-class politics that newspapers once fed. And what about the places Europe once colonized? The absence of a roaring European print culture means slower standardization of colonial administrations, fewer cheap bureaucratic forms, more reliance on local intermediaries. Mission schools exist, but books are scarce and catechisms are precious. When independence movements finally rise, they sound different. They are led by lawyers and princes, not printers and journalists. Flags are stitched before anthems are printed. The new countries inherit radio towers before they inherit a press. Now let's zoom out and ask something delicate. In a world without the press, does humanity feel less connected or differently connected? The oral world is not empty. It is dense with memory, with long sermons, with stories carved into minds because there are no pages to save them. Public reading becomes performance art. Rhetoric is a power skill. The memory champion replaces the newspaper editor as society's gatekeeper. Truth is negotiated live, not cross-checked in print. Charisma is king. Mid-video check-in. In this alternate timeline, does the Reformation still break the church, or does it bend and reform within? Drop your take below. I'd love to hear your chain reaction. And if you're into these deep dives through tangled timelines, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next map we rewrite. Back to the machinery behind all this. Journals. Without journals, science struggles to keep receipts. Imagine a world where the replication crisis isn't a term. It's the default. Courts of princes adjudicate discoveries like land claims. Who discovered what, when? Whoever has the most credible witnesses. A long-limbed state sponsors a handful of academies, which hoard instruments and publish nothing, because there's nothing to publish on. Drawings circulate by hand. Engineers retire rich from state contracts, their notebooks burned or buried with them. By the late 20th century of this world, technology looks familiar in silhouette, but alien in detail. Electricity hums, but its theory is taught from a patchwork of handwritten notes and state manuals. Computers, if they emerge, are almost entirely institutional, machines programmed by teams trained through apprenticeship, not by manuals studied at home. The early internet, if it appears at all, is less a web than a corridor between ministries and universities. When a mass digital culture finally explodes, It does so on phones tied to voices and images, not to text. The meme is a performance, not a paragraph. The comment section is a call-in show, not a thread. Religious maps hold longer. Catholic Europe persists with pockets of reform. Orthodox tradition anchors the East. Islam's scholarly networks maintain influence through mosques and madrasas, and Protestantism's, if they emerge, are rivers within the greater sea, not oceans that divide the continent. Missionary work continues, but with fewer printed Bibles, it relies on charismatic preachers and memorization. Faith is carried on tongues, not in trunks. With fewer newspapers, fewer public records, fewer printed laws, the archive of the state is more secretive. Historians a century later must excavate voices, not volumes. We, in the future of that world, would know less about the private letters of a minister, more about the speeches of a prince. The ordinary person's diary, if they could afford one, stays in the family, unread by strangers. A million tiny perspectives are lost to time because they were never multiplied into type. But this isn't a tragedy-only world. It's simply different. Certain arts would bloom. Oral epics would find new life. Theater would be a civic institution, not an entertainment niche. Songs would be treaties and textbooks. Town squares would be classrooms on market days. Memory palaces would be a common craft. And when the press finally arrives in some late century, perhaps reinvented from scratch by a patient tinkerer, its shock would be seismic. Imagine discovering that ideas can be cloned. And if, somehow, the press never emerges at all, but radio and then television and then digital screens take its place, our culture would enter mass media with training wheels of voice and image, but not of text. Authority would sound smooth. Dissent would need a stage, not a blog. Democracy, where it takes root, would lean on rallies and councils, not op-eds and independent papers. It could still work. It would just work differently, with more ritual and less reading. In this map, fewer flags fly early, but more empires last longer. Industrial might arrives later, but crowds hear the same voice sooner. The great philosophies travel on breath, not ink. And somewhere in a quiet room, a monk still copies a book by hand, not because he must, but because in this timeline, that's how civilization remembers. In the end, the printing press was not inevitable. It was a workshop, a gamble, a stack of problems solved by one stubborn mind in the right city at the right time. Break that chain, and the world slows, not to a stop, but to a stately march. The destinations may be similar, steam, wires, screens, but the routes wind through different valleys. Power lingers, nations arrive late. The chorus of voices is smaller but louder, and we, looking back, learn the strangest lesson of all. History isn't just shaped by kings and wars. It can hinge on a single lever of wood and iron, squeezing ink into a future that only exists because paper learned to multiply. So what does this teach us? That information is a technology. Change the machine, change the map. And sometimes, the most world-shaking revolutions don't shout. They click.